the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into an all-new episode of Redskins Relaunch. I am your host, Nick Yor, filling in for the lovely Winston Hilton. Thank you, Winston, for providing us this opportunity as we're going to get into a big-time show today. We have a lot coming up. It's going to be a big packed show, a lot of DC sports around the NFL, NFC East, and, of course, talking about the Washington Redskins. Nothing went right. Start off with, we're going to preview up next, coming up with the Bears on Monday Night Football, keys to that game, all what went wrong in the Dallas game. We're going to do some Drew Brees, Big Ben, talk about the rest of the NFL injuries, what we have coming up. And then we're going to talk about some DC sports as well. Nats in a very dangerous position, in danger of losing what they've worked for all season so far and really stressing out a lot of DC fans. We can get ready for hockey season, which a lot of us in the DC area, that is our number one sport. The fans in DC rock the red probably harder for any team. They do the Capitals and any other team in the DMV. We're going to talk about that ugly Maryland game, the ugly Maryland loss that upset a lot of us here for college football fans in the D.C. area. We're going to talk Mystics, crazy win for them last night in Game 1 against the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA playoffs. Good for them. And then we're also going to talk about USA basketball because we just can't let that go. Finishing in 7th place, losing to Serbia and France. Just an embarrassing performance for the U.S. men's national team in basketball at the World Cup level. So that's what we're going to be talking about on the show today. We're going to take a quick break before we hop right into segment 1, breaking down the Redskins and Cowboys game. We're going to do a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry. This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into an all-new episode of Redskins Relaunch. We are getting right into things today, and we first have to talk and start today's show with the game and topic of today for the Washington Redskins. It was another disappointing Sunday for the Redskins, another divisional loss for Washington as we start 0-2 in the division for the first time in a while that I can remember. And it seemed like a very similar game to Philadelphia. Redskins got off to a very good start, handled the expectations, handled the opposing team very well. And then the second half, when adjustments need to be made and quality players and quality coaching really needs to come to the forefront, the Redskins fell flat again in the second half. And I know that's something Winston has hit on in past weeks, is this team and this coaching staff just can't seem to make very many adjustments. But let's start out with some of the good from that Redskins-Cowboys game, and it was the start. They got up 7-0 on the Cowboys, which the same as the Eagles, got up on the Eagles. A lot of people didn't expect that, but it was a good surprise for Washington fans. And Adrian Peterson passed Jim Brown for 5th all-time in rushing TDs, and that was good. Probably would have gotten there a lot earlier if Jay Gruden would have given him the ball or even dressed him in Week 1 like everyone knows he should have. Jay finally did give him the ball, and he got that touchdown, but that was really it as he stopped giving Peterson the ball. 10 carries, 25 yards, had that touchdown. But once you get down big like they were in the second half. You can't really run the ball, especially out of I formation power stuff like Adrian Peterson is known for. I thought Jay Gruden did get away from the run game a little too early in that first half, really let Case Keenum and that offensive line out to dry as Dallas was able to pin their ears back and come after him a lot. DeMarcus Lawrence had a very good game pressuring the quarterback for Dallas, and I think you really just have to lean and try to trust that ground game a little bit more if I'm Jay Gruden. Another bright spot, Terry McLaurin, the rookie from Ohio State, continues his impressive performance. Had over 100 yards and a touchdown against Eagles in Week 1. Has 5 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown against Dallas in Week 2 as well, even though it was a bit of a garbage time touchdown. He is one of the few bright spots in these 0-2 seasons so far. And we thought the Redskins defense, speaking of dark clouds, was going to be a big-time strength for this team, and it is turning into a liability, especially the pass rush, which we thought was going to be the key to this team. And another strength we thought was going to be this on this year's team was Josh Norman, one of the best corners in the league. You thought definitely the best corner on this Redskins team, gets paid like one of the best corners in the league, and now it is 2 weeks in a row he has gotten roasted deep. This one by a Cowboys receiver that no one's ever heard of, Devin Smith, second-round pick a couple years ago out of Ohio State. I know a lot of people are going to say he should have had some safety help there, but that was just an awful angle by Norman, and he didn't look very good tackling the ball, tackling as well. As you see, Dak got loose for a big 42-yard scramble. The discipline is obvious in this team, and the adjustments is obvious as well, and I think that's where it really starts. And not only does it start with the adjustments and Jay Gruden head coaching, but it starts even at the top, general manager, owner. I mean, this team, it just seems to funnel on down, and we've kind of gone through the good and the bad here, and I'd like to bring in Cameron Anderson, another one of our analyst here at DMVSTREAM.COM, Washington native, the Washington Redskins, and other Washington teams his entire life. I know you were focused on this game as well. What stood out to you, good or bad, for the Washington Redskins this week?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I mean, for me, it's just a lack of identity. I mean, we talked during the preseason about how this was going to be a run-first, play-defense type of team, really in the mold of the Cowboys, who we played this week. And, we all saw how well that went. The rushing stats, they had 213 yards on the ground. That's 6.3 yards a carry. We had 47. We had 47 yards on the ground, 2.8 yards, only one touchdown. That, great touchdown there for AP. Obviously, him getting that record, absolutely incredible. But for a team that came in, knowing what they had at the quarterback position, Case Keenum, he'll get the job done, but he's not going to lead your team anywhere. You have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to stop the run. And for us to come in against the Cowboys, the team that we knew that we were going to have to get through them in this division. This is a divisional game. To get absolutely blown out like that on the ground, really to what was supposed to be coming into the season, was supposed to be our identity. For us to get so far away from that so quickly, and I know game script had something to do with that, it's really disheartening, I would say, coming out of that first game.
Yeah, I would completely agree. Game script had a little bit to do with it. Darius Geist's injury had a little bit to do with it. But when you have a Hall of Famer sitting back there ready to go, you don't really have much excuses for getting away from the ground game. That's something me and Cameron definitely agreed on. And where was that Redskins defensive line? I mean, I know they're missing their best player, Jonathan Allen. Shout out to him. He's in the studio, got his jersey up over there. Stonebridge alum, Northern Virginia. He was out. And it was that obvious. And I got to go to you, Andrew. Was Andrew, our director over there, pulling the buttons and the strings, making us look good? I mean, is Jonathan Allen that important to give up that much yards on the running game, or was it something else that was the downfall for the Redskins to you watching this game?
Well, I think when you look at the Redskins and you look at where the downfall could be, I think that hurts in the running game aspect. But overall, the defense, the problem is the secondary was supposed to be one of the strengths and is a complete weakness. And if we go to our Facebook comments, Todd Booth said there's no leadership in the whole organization from owner to the players. And we can talk about the owner for all season long, right? I think at this point, any Redskin fan knows about Dan Snyder and all the problems there. But the players, the lack of leadership from the supposed leaders. I mean, Josh Norman has an awful game. And what does he do as one of the leaders on this team? Or, the so-called leaders on this team? Doesn't own up to it. Doesn't any of that. He goes and talks about how the media is not fair after one of the worst games of his career. That's just not how your leaders are supposed to act about it. Yeah, the media might not be fair. Maybe they are. I'm not going to get into that. But as a player who just had a bad game, you can't be going on about that. Your defense has gotten lit up. Case Keenum has been one of the highlights of the season. If you showed me Case Keenum's numbers and said, what's the Redskins' record, I'd say they're 2-0 easy. But the defense has been what was supposed to be the strength, as you mentioned, Nick, has just been a colossal failure, and the players are out here blaming the media. That's not a winning combination, and it's just someone's got to step up. Someone's got to say, look, we can complain or we can try to fix things. And until that happens, I think just maybe the players that want to play, when you're just on the field so much as a defense, even the run defense, which I think is better than the pass defense right now, is going to get worn down, is going to get tired just from being on the field so much that eventually their numbers are going to look bad as well.
Yeah, and I think that's what is the most frustrating part about it for Redskins fans especially is that's what we thought we could hold our hat on. We thought we could, we're going to get solid defense. If not, maybe I heard Redskins fans and personnel saying it might be one of the best defenses in the league. That is laughable now. And that was supposed to be a strength of the team. Running game was supposed to be a strength of the team. They were talking about the Redskins might have the best running back unit in the entire NFL with Darius Guice, Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson. You add Wendell Smallwood, a good back for special teams and can do a lot of things running and catching the ball. And to get no production, absolutely no production out of your running game in week 1 and 2 and no help from your defense, I mean, I just don't know where can we expect this to turn around or how can we expect this to get any better if you're Redskins fans? What are the positive outlooks in your opinion, Cameron?
I mean, at this point, I feel like positive outlooks. Terry McLaurin looks good. You know, as a rookie, your expectation for him is to come in, you know, and I expected not much from him at all coming into the year. You know, we made a big deal about cutting Josh Doxson out of training camp and really how young that receiving core is right away. For him to he really looks like he's taking the mantle as that number one guy. So to see him and to see how he's working with Case Keenum, it really gives you hope that, you know, the passing attack might actually not be as bad as we thought. Now, if we can just get a little bit of the run game, and if we can get that, you know, maybe scheme something up defensively, get our guys back and get some pressure on the quarterback, it's not the offense does not need to be the black hole that it is. And the passing, you know, the passing success or relative success that we've had so far proves that. I think that it may be a point where you start to look at Dwayne Haskins and maybe, you know, if we're going to be 0-2 and if we're not going to be able to run the ball, maybe we get his big arm involved and see if, you know, he can spark something with this offense, if he can be maybe that leader that we so clearly need.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because when that's what they thought they could hang their hat on, and I think I agree with you that Jay needs to stick with it a little bit more. I mean, the offensive line is not great, but there is pieces up there that can, and I think when they have the time to gel together, Donald Penn, left tackle, was signed literally days before training camp. I mean, you're going to have to let him have a little bit more time to mesh with this offensive line, and I think they have to stay with the ground game a little bit more and try to get some production out of it because you're already throwing the ball well, and if you add a good running game, you're only going to throw it a little bit better. But so I think Jay needs to stick with that running game. That is fixable. But for the defense, I just don't know Andrew, I would like to get your comments where you think they could maybe go and what you think this defense needs to improve. But we talked about the running game, but this defense has to improve, and it has to improve mightily, especially on all three levels. Do you think that – I think the running game can improve when you have the pass game. Do you think this defense has a shot to improve in season?
I really think it's tough. I mean, they've got just – you look at some of the players on that defense, and they've underperformed, yes. Will they get better? I mean, I think they will throughout the course of the year, but will they get good enough? I really don't know. That's just really tough for me to say. Just if you look at where the money's going, how much money's going to Josh Norman, you still got money going to Alex Smith on the salary cap. So you can understand part of the reasons why, but with the players currently in-house, I'm not sure if the defense ever gets enough better for it to really matter. I don't think they're this bad. I don't think they're one of the worst defenses in the league. I think they might be below average, but bottom five like they're playing right now, I think maybe they've just had a couple rough games. But it's just, you know, I think if you want to fix the defense this season, you're going to have to invest in trying to get pieces from outside the organization. And with the talent right there, I don't know if that's worth doing.
Yeah, I would agree. And the defense, I mean, It's really tough. I mean, they have to they have to get into the top 10. They have to be a top 10 defense, I believe, for this Redskins team to be any type of successful, and they're a bottom 5 right now. And it's showing as they might end up with a top 3 pick, and we didn't expect that. Redskins fans coming in realistically, I mean, I thought that was a little unrealistic for Redskins to be viewed as a top 10 defense coming into the year. Yes, they had a very dominant defensive line, but they had holes at linebacker, and holes at the opposite corner and opposite safety from Landon Collins and Josh Norman. So I think they have to address positions there, and they have to do a lot before they get to play Monday Night Football. The Bears, is we're going to preview that game coming up, Redskins-Bears. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere, as we're going to be talking about the upcoming Monday night game and how the Redskins could possibly improve and have a better shot of winning that game in Chicago. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry. This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry. This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry.
Hello and welcome back into an all-new episode of Redskins Relaunch. I'm your host, Nick Yor, filling in for Winston Hilton. Has a very busy day today, or just did not want to come in after that Cowboys defeat. I'm just kidding, of course, but he's here, ride or die. But we're going to get into some of our comments. We appreciate that. Everyone make sure to comment on Facebook and Twitter at DMVStream. Leave all your hot takes, your comments. We want to react to all of them, and we want all your suggestions, as we and the Redskins, we need help. We need to fix this defense. We need to fix this running game, and we want all your suggestions on how to do that, because we thought that was going to be our strength this year, and it is not, and it is driving Redskins fans crazy. So, Andrew, I want to go over to you. What are some of the comments we have so far?
Yeah, so we've got a couple comments in so far. Two more from Todd Booth. One of them saying, I'd send Ramsey packing, trade him and Trent, or send Norman packing.
There you go, yep.
Trade him and Trent for Ramsey. I don't think anyone wants to send Ramsey packing. If the Jaguars would take that trade, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Looking at the salary cap, we can get into that a little more. Todd Booth also says, and talking about the defense, that teams are focusing on the run, forcing Keenum to beat them. Now we got Wayne Thomas talking about the defense. He says the main thing this defense needs to do is pressure the quarterback. If we can't get pressure with the front five, then blitz more. And that's something I definitely agree with. I love sending as much pressure as is reasonably possible. And then from Ben Buckholtz, at what point do the Redskins replace Keenum with Haskins? That's another one I think we can get into in a little more depth. So thanks for the comments, everybody, and be sure to keep those rolling in.
Yeah, we're going to get into Haskins, Keenum a little bit in the third segment, but let's start with trading Josh Norman and Trent Williams. And I am completely on that bandwagon as well. I think we're past the point of no return with Trent Williams. I know how dear and how much Redskins fans love him. He's been our pride, our joy for probably the past decade, the one guy we consistently send to the Pro Bowl and can say, hey, he is among the best at his position, and he plays for us here in Washington. I know that's a sore subject, but it just is back. It doesn't look like this relationship is repairable, so I would send him packing for the best deal I could get as well. I thought we missed an opportunity not getting him sent to Houston. He was from the Houston area. The Texans don't have a GM. They were wheeling and dealing for players. Miami got a first and second round pick for Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills. And I think we can all agree that Trent Williams is a lot better than Laramie Tunsil right now. Yes, Tunsil a little younger, but Williams is the better player, and Williams from Texas. I thought we missed an opportunity there. There's been some reports about Trent Williams maybe getting traded to San Francisco to join Kyle Shanahan, his former head coach. I think that would be a great situation as well. Get as much as you can for Kyle Shanahan because he's going to get a first. But the Redskins, they say Daniel Snyder, and again, we bring him up again as could be a downfall for many of these Redskins issues. They said he won't deal Trent Williams to Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers until they play each other, which is coming up in the next few weeks. The Niners come to Washington. Daniel Snyder would not want to see Trent Williams in a 49ers uniform playing against the Redskins in Washington. So I think that's a possibility, but just after they play the 49ers. And then I think he hit it right on the head saying trade Josh Norman. Josh Norman's days of being an elite corner or even a very good corner are over. And the way you're paying him in Washington, you're paying him as one of the best in the league. And that's just not going to how you win football games. You have to get value out of players. Look at the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick. They don't overpay for anybody. They get value at every single position, and that's where the Redskins need to start doing that. And Josh Norman, the money he's making, that is not value. He needs to be cut or traded immediately. I say traded to try and get whatever you can out of him. If he'll stay for maybe a little bit less of money, then do so. But I think they hit that right on the head with those two. And then right now, another comment. They said they are loading up the box so that we can't get the run game going. I would agree with that 100%. But once Case Keenum finishes the day with 300-something yards, the next week you should be able to run the ball a little bit better. Case Keenum hasn't been the problem. If we give him, I would love to see what he could do with a running game instead of having only 25, 30 yards to go. I'd like to bring Cam in here again. Any of those comments really stir you up and get anything you thought needs to be said?
Yeah, so I want to jump right in real quick with the trading Trent Williams and Josh Norman debate. I don't think that you can commit to that as an organization. I think that, if you look at what's happening right now down in Miami, where they lose a couple games and all of a sudden half their team wants to get traded, or you see the Jalen Ramsey situation down in Jacksonville, as soon as you say, all right, Trent, the things aren't going well right now, sure, we'll deal you. How many other people are going to be knocking at that door? And then what kind of message does that send to the young guys? We've spent so many first-round picks on the defense over the last couple of years. What kind of message does that send to them? If all of a sudden you're Jonathan Allen, you're sitting there like, this team's 0-2. Who's not 0-2, and then you walk into Dan Snyder's office or whoever's office and you say, or Jay Gruden's office, I'm not going to play until I get dealt to one of these teams. At what point do you lose control of your players, of your culture as an organization? 0-2, obviously not the best start, but the worst thing I think you can do is start sacrificing the culture just because you have a couple losses.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But you don't want to end up like the Dolphins. I agree, especially when you don't need a quarterback at the top of the draft because they have their quarterback in the future, supposedly with Dwayne Haskins, and it looks like you're going to get a very high draft pick. But my response is, why are you worrying about wasting this culture? What has this culture done for you in 10-plus years? I would welcome a regime change from the top down. I know you already have your quarterback in the future, so you don't need to address that. But other than that, let's just clean house and just get that's what I say. But to another comment saying we need to blitz more. This defense can't handle more blitzes. If you take less people to cover, the strength of this team is the defensive line. Jonathan Allen, Anderson, Ioannidis, Kerrigan, they should be able to get there with 4 or 5. And if they can't, there's not a lot of hope for this Redskins defense because they are not very well in the back end. As you saw, their best corner, Josh Norman, get beat a couple times. We don't know what else they have. Jimmy Moreland's very good in the slot. But other than that, I think they are very susceptible on the back end. We're going to take another quick break before we preview the Bears game. Don't go away. We're going to be right back with more Redskins Relaunch. Welcome back to Redskins Relaunch, and we start with Jay Gruden, and he says it is not time to hit the panic button for him and the Washington Redskins right now. And I got to ask you guys, comment, let us know, are you hitting the panic button on this team, on this season already? We're not the Dolphins, but, it's pretty bad, 2 divisional losses like that. If not now, when is it time to panic? If I'm Jay Gruden, for Jay Gruden, yes, it's time to panic. He needs a miraculous comeback to try and get this season right. I think the only hope that he saves his job is that he gets Haskins in here these next couple games, and Haskins looks really good. Just looks really good in that Jay Gruden offense where, hey, you can't take this guy away from this young quarterback. But other than that, Jay Gruden needs to panic. I think it is time. But we'll go to you guys now. Is it panic time, Cam?
So on a scale out of 10, I'm at like a 6. I'm at like a 6, and I'll tell you why. It's because of that defense. If you look at the young guys we've had on the offensive side of the ball, Terry McLaurin obviously looked good. Dwayne Haskins we haven't seen yet, but I think it's only a matter of time that we'll see him. The running game, obviously, you don't like that, and the Darius Geis injury really, really hurts, especially after he missed all of last year with the injury. But the defense, that young defense, especially with the offensive line, like you didn't even mention Montez Sweat, who was our first round pick, for them to really start the season slow. And I know that some of them didn't play that much during the preseason, but for them to start as slow as they did, that is why I'm a 6 out of 10. If our defense looks good right now, even if we're 0-2, forget the record. If our defense looks good right now and we're running the ball, and you can say, okay, what we are missing right now is a quarterback. Okay. We have one of those. So at that, or we hope we do at least anyway. And with Haskins, so I'm gonna go 6 out of 10, and it's mostly because of that defense. Because that is, as I said, that was supposed to be where we could hang our hat this season with all those young defensive linemen. We've looked okay on the offensive side of the ball, especially passing. Terry McLaurin, I've said his name a bunch of times, but for good reason. But it's that defensive side of the ball. I'm at a solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I would agree with you, especially the defensive line. If that was supposed to be, you've got to be able to get pressure with those 4 or 5, and they have to be able to stop the run because you are young in that secondary at certain spots. Nicholson at safety, showed his youth on that bomb against Josh Norman. Quentin Dunbar was a receiver in college. So he's still he's still young, learning this position. Jimmy Moreland, very good rookie, but he's playing in the nickel for you right now, still very young. So, you have to be able to get pressure and take it off some of that young secondary. But I want to get back into Josh Norman with Andrew. You brought it up in the first segment, and he kind of had a little spat with the media, calling them spoiled, rotten apples from hell. I thought that was a little much there from Josh and to our colleagues there who cover the Redskins. But apparently this stemmed from when Norman said in week leading up to this game that he thinks Dak is successful in big part because of who is around him, and especially his offensive line. And that got kind of relayed to the Cowboys in Dak in pregame, and it was read to them, and they kind of used that as a motivational piece, so to speak. And somehow that got mixed up and got back to Norman, where he got some flack about it because he was pissed after the game, and he was pissed at and called the media that, hey, I wasn't saying that about Dak. I was saying he was a good player and the players around him are good, and you guys screwed it into a completely different perception, which they were able to use as motivation, making me look bad. That's what Norman was upset about from the media. I get that, but it also doesn't help that you get cooked on a couple of plays in back-to-back weeks. And I know Nicholson was a little bit of part to blame for that Dallas TD. He was supposed to give a little bit of help, but perception, that's very tough. And so just what do you think really needs to be done with this defense, calling more blitzes? Josh Norman, he obviously needs to play better, but what do you just take away with that whole situation with them.
I mean, that whole situation with Josh Norman, my biggest takeaway is that you just got to let noise be noise. I mean, the media is not the one that took his comments, printed them out, gave them to the Cowboys. He said the words. The Cowboys used it as motivation. You can say, hey, I didn't mean Dak's bad post-game, but you don't need to go on this big rant. That's taking a situation and, one, looking for people to blame for poor play, and two, making it about you. Josh Norman just took this whole thing, it became about Dak Prescott, and now he just brought it back to being about him. And that's always the thing with Josh Norman. Is maybe he doesn't always mean bad, but he has to be the center of attention. And when you're getting burned, maybe you don't want to be the center of attention. Maybe you should be laying back a couple weeks, saying, I'm going to work hard in practice, I'm going to get better. Because just let noise be noise. You've got bigger issues right now. And I also want to go back to the whole thing with Trent and him not playing, whether you should trade him or not. I mean, I think you should trade him. He's not going to come back. But I think if we're going to talk about Trent Williams, we've got to talk about what happened to Darius Geis. The whole reason Trent Williams was sitting out, a main part of that was having to do with the medical staff. And then in week 1, they put Darius Geis out there. He gets hurt. They say they knew he might have had a knee injury, and Peterson was inactive. So when that knee started acting up in week 1, they didn't have the backup in there. And to me, from the outside, that kind of proved Trent right. You know, if they knew he had the injury, why was Peterson inactive? But just this team, it's a mess. And, you know, we can talk about how the ownership's a mess, but at the same time, the players can't help fix that. And if you're going to have a guy like Josh Norman who's going to be so vocal, why don't you use that attention that you have built up on yourself to take charge and change the narrative about this team? Because right now, is there a single good narrative about the Redskins other than Case Keenum's been kind of okay? That's about the only positive from the season. I guess Adrian Peterson breaking some records is cool as well. But some of the players need to, one, step up their play, but also if you're going to try to get all this attention, use it to change the story of the season. You know, maybe point out the rookies that are playing well, trying to get some attention. Just change the narrative. You can do that as a player, and I think if you see someone step up and do that, they might not be winning games this year, and this year might be a lost cause, but you can at least build some positive momentum and some reasons for fans to care for the future other than just Dwayne Haskins, who might or might not play this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and we're going to get into kind of this Bears-Redskins preview now, and I want to start off with kind of when you get into this game, get into the nuts and bolts. We talk a little bit about Jay Gruden, but let's talk a little bit about offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell and defensive coordinator Greg Minuski. I thought O'Connell's been decent given the parts he has around him. I mean, it's tough for any offensive coordinator or offense to look flashy when Case Keenum's your quarterback and your number one receiver is a rookie, Terry McLaurin, out of Ohio State. I thought he's been pretty admirable, but what he's been able to do. Obviously, I've said it in the past, we'd like to stick with the run game a little bit more, since that has been your strength. Really try to get every last bit of Adrian Peterson out in these next couple weeks, and then try to do a lot more play action over the top. You have the speed with McLaurin. So other than that, I think he's done a very good job. But Greg Minuski, the defensive coordinator, I think that's where we really need to get and talk about this, especially when you're talking about the Bears, because when you look at this Bears game, it shapes up to be a defensive battle because the Bears have one of the best defenses in the league, led by Khalil Mack. They're going to shut down the run. You saw what they did against Green Bay in the first week. Aaron Jones, very good running back, had under 30 yards. So they're going to make Case Keenum beat them. And I think that's really what it's going to come down to. Can Case Keenum make these tough throws on the outside? The Bears have a couple of good defensive backs. Kendall Fuller, local guy from Good Counsel, plays out there for Chicago. He's a very good corner, very good safety play. They have Hawk and Dix, who we know definitely can get beat on a couple of routes. Yeah. So they have him at safety. But do you think this is we think the Bears defense will hold? Do you think this Redskins defense will be able to hold their own and keep the Redskins in this game against Mitch Trubisky and a Bears offense that has struggled early on in the season?
So here's the great thing about this game from my perspective, and I think that Jay Gruden has to be, at least confident in this. The Redskins can win this game 10-7. They can win this game, 13-10, 14-3, 7-3. Mitch Trubisky, to say he struggled has been an understatement. They have 19 points on the season. They're averaging under 10 points a game, and I know the Broncos defense is fine, but it's not what it was. It's not what it was 3-4 years ago. Packers defense also good, but not not one that we expected to be elite coming into the season. So if Case Keenum can do just enough, and if this defense can get some of that swagger that we really saw during training camp, we heard about, and all the coaches were talking about, if we can get some pressure on Mitch Trubisky, he will make mistakes. Case Keenum, one of the good things really about him is you expect him to at least be a professional quarterback and not turn the ball over, throw it away when he needs to, and that's obviously easier said than done oftentimes against that Bears defense. But if we can just not turn the ball over, even if the offense isn't great, which I definitely do not expect it to be, if the Bears defense can hold Aaron Rodgers to 10 points, like, it's Case Keenum, okay? So if we can get our defense just to make plays against Mitch Trubisky and that very questionable Bears defense, we can win a bloodbath. Like, we can win a close, hard-fought 14-10 game and really get the momentum going for this defense. This could be one of those games we look back at and we say, wow, the defense found that swagger today. Like Josh Norman was talking. Josh Norman, we can say 2 weeks from now that his comments inspired the team rather than how negatively we're looking at them now. And that all depends on how we show up on Monday night on ESPN, obviously the primetime games.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think a lot of Redskins fans, if they thought, how are we going to win these first two games, it was going to be like that, low-scoring defensive games versus the Eagles and Cowboys. But, hey, Mitchell Trubisky is not Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott, and they're not running those type of high-efficient offenses right now. So I think that's a great point. They can keep this a low-scoring game, find a way to win this game. Would be the turning point of the season. The defense really came alive against another stellar defense. Maybe that'll pump them up. They're playing against another good unit to say, hey, we can do this too, stuff like that. But, yeah, it has to be a very low-scoring game, limiting mistakes from Case Keenum, which he hasn't made any, and trying to capitalize on those Mitch Trubisky mistakes, because he will throw you a couple. If you see in these first couple games, there will be some interceptable passes. We just have to take advantage of those. All right, so that's going to do it for Bears Redskins preview. We're going to go around the NFL next block and talk about NFC East, some other games, and talk about Haskins Keenum. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a short few minutes.
This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry. This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry. This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry.
Welcome in to another all-new episode of Redskins Relaunch. That is, we continue in our third block here, we're going to go around the NFL a bit, talk about some other games and stuff, but first we're going to read a bit of your comments. We appreciate all of them. Keep them coming with all your hot takes and stuff like that. It starts with we don't want demanding trades, certain teams like that, kind of the new movement in the NFL, NBA. Started definitely in the NBA. Now it's kind of trickled its way over to the NFL, and we saw it happen recently. Mika Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins. That's some other NFL news. The Steelers traded a first-round pick for him, a defensive back out of Alabama. Went 11 overall last year in the first round, so the Steelers get him for a first-round pick. And that's interesting news we'll touch on in a little bit as to why. And we have another one. Well, I thought it was interesting with the demanding trades because Cameron made a good point that you don't want to get to that level like you've had with the Dolphins and the Redskins, and I don't think we are quite at that level with the Redskins. They've been competitive in the first half of these couple of games, and you can't say the least for that for the Dolphins. And now we have another comment, 8 on the panic scale as a comment, and I would agree with that. Maybe if you're talking about Jay Gruden, it should be a 10. But for this team, 8 on the panic scale, especially with the way this defense and this running game has looked, supposed to be your strengths. They have been far from that, so I would say 8 is a very good number. Another one is can't beat the Dolphins right now. We're going to see that in a couple of weeks. Redskins are going to play the Dolphins and hopefully won't be the toilet bowl at that point. But the Dolphins, it seems like they're tank for Tua right now, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. And so I think the Redskins would hopefully beat the Dolphins. We have another shout-out for JMU, Jimmy Moreland, playing very well. We can definitely agree with that. Slot corner. I went to James Madison as well, so shout out to the Dukes. Love to see that. And then O-line struggles, Flowers and Moses. We've gone over the O-line struggles. It definitely hurts with Trent. I think Donald Penn, left tackle, will be good eventually, but I will agree with this comment that Flowers and Moses are backups at best. And I know that hurts a lot of Redskins fans to hear about Moses, especially UVA guy, local guy. Played well for this team in the past, but I just don't think he's a starting tackle in the NFL. And obviously we've seen Eric Flowers is not a starting anything in the NFL along the offensive line, as he struggled horrendously in New York to start his career and has not been doing well so far with the Eagles. So keep those messages coming. We love them. And now we're going to get into some other NFL stuff. And you got to start with the injuries. I mean, the NFL works so hard to keep these guys healthy on the field, pretty much changing the rules so you can't hit them. And when we saw that egregious call in the Denver-Chicago game that gave Chicago a chance to kick the game-winning field goal, I mean, that was not roughing the passer, but then you see why they call it as you get the injury to Foles. And then now we have Drew Brees and Big Ben, the elder statesman of the league. Big Ben, 2 Super Bowls. Drew Brees, 1. I mean, they're both out for significant periods of time. Looks like Drew Brees 6 weeks, then will be re-examined. Big Ben out for the year. Let us know, do you think this is the last time we see Ben Roethlisberger? Will he retire? Will he come back? That would be very interesting to see for the Steelers. I personally think it might be the end for him, and especially if how we see Mason Rudolph play, and we're going to get into that. Brees has ligament damage in the thumb. We talked about that 6 weeks, and Roethlisberger out for the season. And now we're going to get into that Steelers trade. They trade a first-round pick for Mika Fitzpatrick, and that's very interesting because they're 0-2 right now, and they just lost their franchise quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger is probably going to be out, or he's going to be out for the year, and now they're trusting fully in Mason Rudolph, second-round pick out of Oklahoma State last year. If you're a Big 12 fan, anyone out there, me and Andrew, we've seen Mason Rudolph play a good amount. The kid can sling the ball, but he plays one of those air raid offense where you just score 1,000 points. We haven't seen too many quarterbacks really convert that into success in the NFL, obviously, besides Patrick Mahomes, who's just on a completely another level. But Mason Rudolph ran a very similar offense at Oklahoma State that Patrick Mahomes did at Texas Tech. He looked decent against Seattle in that second half of that game, but you just traded your first-round pick when your aging quarterback's out for the year. Good chance to get into the front of that draft, very heavy quarterback draft. Very surprised Pittsburgh made that deal. Continue around the NFL. Pats roll with Antonio Brown, 5 catches, a touchdown. I mean, They are playing the Miami Dolphins, so, I mean, take that for a grain of salt, but still looks very good. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, man, it would be nice if the Redskins had him. Didn't take him last year, but Baltimore held on to beat Terrell Suggs and the Cardinals, who had a late rally from Kyler Murray. Cam continues to look really bad. Have we seen the last of Cam Newton for the Carolina Panthers? That could be very interesting as they took Will Grier in the 3rd round from West Virginia this past year. Who knows how long he's going to be out and if he'll even come back as the same quarterback, knowing how much he does with his legs. Looks like Jameis Winston and Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians saved Jameis Winston's job for a little bit longer. Buffalo, surprise, 2-0, and they did that while they swept the New York City or the New Jersey teams. As Josh Allen, Buffalo quarterback, pointed out, they are the only NFL team to play their games in the state of New York, as they beat both the Giants and the Jets to go 2-0 in the Meadowlands. And maybe they can give New England a little bit of a scare, as we know the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins will not in the AFC East. Falcons hold off to beat the Eagles. Julio Jones, I mean, there's a reason he just got paid. He got paid a lot. I mean, wow, took that screen to the house, a couple other big plays against a very good Eagles defense. Packers 2-0, they beat Kirk Cousins again, and I think we all, when Redskins fans, we can say we're not surprised Kirk Cousins lost another big game to a division rival. So that was around the NFL, and now we're going to go to division. Now we're going to talk in the division. Cowboys look very good, 2-0. Eagles 1-1 as they lost to the Falcons on Sunday night. And then we get to those Giants and the Redskins bringing it up at 0-2. And the Giants made a very controversial move this week, announcing Daniel Jones will take over for Eli Manning as a starting quarterback. And that's very key for us because we took a quarterback in the 1st round as well, Dwayne Haskins. So they're going to their 1st-round quarterback and replacing Eli Manning, which is a lot, especially in New York. What will it take for you, and we'll go to Andrew, get Andrew's opinion on this next, what would it take for you for the Redskins to do the same move and go to their 1st-round quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, like the Giants did this week with Daniel Jones?
So, to me, it's we're like one performance away, maybe 2 performances away, depending on how we look against the Bears. I mean, winning this year, Case Keenum's probably the guy. Although our recipe for doing that, we thought was going to be running the football, playing defense, and then, he would do enough. Okay, hasn't worked. Now, if it doesn't, but in fairness, we've played 2 very good teams. As talking about the NFC East, Cowboys and the Eagles are 2 of the best teams in the NFC, period. So it's not, losing to them is not that embarrassing. It was the way that we did it. If we lose to the Bears, who came into the year, obviously, with these high expectations, but have looked terrible, and you mentioned about that, fortunate call for them that even got them to 1-1 instead of just 0-2. If we lose to them and we look bad, I would make the switch right there. I think that the Giants did it for a reason. Their season, as far as making the playoffs, really never even started, but is definitely over now. So why not look at what you at what you have with this pretty unproven guy, pretty controversial draft pick out of Duke, Daniel Jones. What he proved a lot of people wrong in the preseason. Daniel Jones did. Haskins looked a little bit more questionable, but you also saw those flashes. You saw that big playability, that big arm that he has. So to me, I think 1 more, maybe 2, because Jay Gruden, as soon as he makes the switch, he's got to kind of know that he's getting fired. So, but 1, maybe 2 more weeks, and then I would make the switch. You might as well see what you have. I was talking about Terry McLaurin. He's been looking good. I feel like we have a potential, number 1 wide receiver for the next 5 years, and beyond. If we turn around and we see that same thing with Haskins, now all of a sudden my panic meter goes from 6 down to like 1 or 2, because sure, this year, throw it in the trash, get the draft pick, but all of a sudden we've got a quarterback that we believe in, a wide receiver 1 for him, and we're still young on defense, and give me 1 more year of draft picks, and all of a sudden we're looking great. So I think that's exactly what the Giants have figured out now, is that let's just see what we have. The Redskins 1 or 2 weeks away at most.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Definitely not this week. Too good of a defense. You don't want to put them out there in front of the whole world to see your rookie quarterback go up against the best defense in the NFL. But the next week they play those New York Giants and Daniel Jones, and I think that's the perfect week to send him in. You see what you got in there. You see what you maybe missed in Daniel Jones. You're going to have to let those two go one-on-one. And Dwayne Haskins said he was going to make everybody pay who didn't draft him before the Redskins. And he's from the New Jersey, New York area. He wanted to be a Giant. Everyone saw that. They had him at the 8th overall pick. Most people thought they would take Dwayne Haskins with the 8th overall pick. They didn't. They took your Duke boy, Daniel Jones, instead. I think Haskins would love to make his debut in that game, and I think it's a great decision for the Redskins to do that. Let us know, comment what you think when they should go with Haskins over Keenum. I'm going to Andrew's opinion real quickly here. Andrew, do you think it's time for Dwayne Haskins like the Giants made with Daniel Jones, or is it on for a couple more weeks with Case Keenum?
I mean, I think it just all depends on, is Haskins ready? Does he look good in practice? Does he look like he could handle the NFL speed? Because if he's ready, maybe not quite yet, but pretty soon you should probably get him out there. But if he's not looking like he's going to have success and you just kind of be throwing him into the fire, just roll with Keenum all season long. I know it's disappointing, but you don't want to shake this guy's confidence throwing him into a bad situation with a bad O-line and a bad defense. So if he looks great in practice and he looks ready to go, by all means, put him in there. Let the coaches make their decisions. But if he's not 100% ready to go into the season, ready to go into the fire of regular season NFL, then just wait a season this year. It doesn't matter. The Redskins aren't going anywhere this year. I mean, it's only 2 games in, but those have been the worst first 2 games of a season for the Redskins in a long time. So maybe they'll turn it around. I don't think so. But I don't think it's about this year. I think it's about the future and what you can build around Haskins. And if there's any chance I can shake his confidence by putting him in too soon, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. It's definitely interesting. Everyone's going to have their own opinion. I think it's very interesting seeing what the Giants do, having that be in your division, 2 rookie quarterbacks. Those 2 are always going to be connected for the rest of their careers, Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins. So it'd be very interesting to see if he gets that nod against New York. All right, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with DC Sports, all that good stuff, talk about Terps, Mystics, Nats, Caps, all that stuff. We'll be right back. Redskins Relaunch. Don't go anywhere. Quick commercial break.
This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into Redskins Relaunch as we continue, and we are going to talk about the rest of the DC sports. But first, we have to update you on some breaking Redskins news that just got tweeted out. The Redskins have signed outside linebacker Noah Spence. It's been reported for a while that they would sign him, but they have placed cornerback Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie on the injured list to account for Noah Spence and make room for him on the roster. Just a little background on Noah Spence. Was a second-round pick by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the second round in 2016. Emerged at Ohio State his sophomore year as an all-Big Ten selection, but then had some troubles off the field, a couple of arrests and drugs, which led to the second-round grade on him, but has always been viewed as a high talent. That's why he got taken in the second round with some off-the-field issues in Tampa Bay. They obviously didn't have great production in Tampa Bay, cut him this past year, and now the Redskins are picking him up to bolster that defensive line. Another young pass rusher. It could only help as we need to get a lot more pressure on the quarterbacks than we have in the first 2 weeks. All right, moving on to the Nationals. They lost again today, 5-1 to St. Louis. Not good. We thought the Nationals needed to get at least 2 in St. Louis, and it doesn't look like they're going to do that. And they need to sweep the Marlins coming up to get back into comfortable position. I mean, they were only 1.5 up when the day started. They lose today, and we'll see later tonight if the Cubs and Brewers can win and really get into within a half game of that first wild card. The Nats looked very comfortable, and now they are starting to scare us all. I mean, it's getting scary if they're going to hang on for one of these wild card spots, and just knowing the DC sports curse, I mean, it's just not going to look good. But here's the big question I like to go with the Nats and talk to you guys a little bit about. The big question for the Nats this offseason, obviously, is they didn't keep Bryce Harper last offseason. Will they make a reasonable offer to keep Anthony Rendon in DC? And will Rendon even accept it, or will he go straight to the market? The Lerners, the national owners, they were notoriously, or not known for being kind of cheap in Atlanta when they owned the Braves, had all those great pitchers, made it to one World Series. And then you saw last year they didn't shell out the big bucks for Bryce Harper. So they have that reputation. Will they give a big offer to Anthony Rendon to keep the all-star third baseman in D.C., do you think, this offseason?
So to use your word reasonable and actually one-up that, I think that as a minimum, as a Nats fan, I expect a minimum, an above-market rate offer for Anthony Rendon. That them not re-signing Bryce Harper, it made sense to me from a baseball sense. We had Victor Robles coming up. We obviously liked him. Adam Eaton, good out in right field, and Juan Soto in left field. You can make an argument that there wasn't a space for all 4 of those, and one of them was about to cost you, $325 million. I get that. Anthony Rendon, we don't have another third baseman. He is an MVP candidate. He's been an MVP candidate twice in the last 4 years. Meanwhile, Bryce Harper, sure, he got his one, but there's a very, very strong argument that Anthony Rendon, and in fact, this year, Anthony Rendon has been a better player than Bryce Harper. He's not going to cost as much. We have no other third baseman. If you as the Lerners, if you as an organization are serious about actually making that jump, we've been right on the cusp, as Nats fans know, year after year. If you're serious about making that jump, you need Anthony Rendon in Washington next year, and for realistically for the rest of his career at this point. But with the offer that you give him, there's absolutely no excuse. When you look at the production that they get out of Rendon and Juan Soto hitting 3-4, no excuse to let that walk in free agency. And then what? I don't even know who you'd start at third base. But we're already a tier below the Dodgers, a tier below the Braves. For us to not then re-sign our MVP candidate?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is it just sends an awful message to the fans. And like they said, we want it so bad. They've won a series since they moved to DC. So I mean, every year it's heartbreak. So we're gonna move on to the Capitals now. We're going to our hockey guy, Andrew. They had a big, not big, but they opened the preseason with a win over Chicago, I believe 4-3. Tommy Wilson scored the game-winning goal in overtime. The preseason's officially underway. Andrew, give the people a couple pointers to look out for in Caps hockey this year.
I think the most interesting overall story about the Capitals this year is how are they going to get under the salary cap? They're over $1 million over the salary cap, and someone's got to go before the end of the season. So you have open tryouts for that last spot on the team, but $1 million in cap space has to leave. I think they might get 3 games in the season due to Kuznetsov's suspension because he won't count against the cap at that point. But just that battle on who's not going to be there. Is it Christian Juice? Is it maybe Chandler Stevenson? Is it a guy kind of that nature that's been a player but hasn't quite established as a consistent performer? But I also think it's interesting. Tom Wilson was pretty much the only regular playing in the game last night, at least of the forwards. You had a couple defensemen in the game, and he's conveniently not playing against the Blues tonight because I think we all remember, at least Caps fans, you'll remember last preseason against the Blues, Tom Wilson almost got himself kicked out of the NHL. So hopefully no repeats of that. I just think it's kind of interesting that they played him against the Blackhawks and not the Blues. But the Capitals, this is still a competitive team. You got some interesting battles on defense. Is it going to be Jonas Siegenthaler or Christian Juice? Kind of who are the young guys that are going to step up on that last pairing? But it's really filling out the roster, seeing how guys like Radko Gudas, who they got from the Flyers, for Niskanen, Panic, who they signed, and a couple of the other guys they brought in, just working them in, see how those guys fit in. And you also got to replace Brett Connolly's performance as he went to the Florida Panthers, and that's a pretty big loss. He had found himself a pretty nice home here in Washington, really revitalized his career. Going back to a couple other things for the Nationals, building on what Cameron was saying, if Anthony Rendon walks, this team's no better than the Redskins. I'll just say it right there. You can't let Rendon and Harper walk in back-to-back years if you're serious about anything. You're no better than Dan Snyder if you let Rendon walk, unless he turns down some ridiculous offer for you. And I'm talking, $100 million more than Nolan Arenado got. It has to be absurd. And we also got a couple comments I want to share going back to the Redskins. Greg Lancaster says they got Haskins on a 5-year NFL rookie contract. No rush. Just keep having good drafts, and the results will come. But you have to have those good drafts. And then B.J. Kubaroulis, you might recognize that name.
Who's that?
I don't know. I've never seen that name before. Interesting. He says, what do you guys think of Redskins making a play for Jalen Ramsey? And for me, the most concerning thing about him is just how much time's left on his contract versus what it's going to take to extend him. But if you can clear out some salary cap and sign him to an extension as part of the trade, I'm all for it. This is one of the best players in the league. Instantly makes your defense a lot better. One defensive back is a difference-making position. So I think if you can get him extended, you make the trade. If you can't get that contract extension worked out, it's just going to be too expensive for 1 year.
Yeah, dealing with those two comments, I would tend to side with Greg on that one over BJ, just because I don't think the Redskins are a shutdown corner away from being a Super Bowl or playoff, like a Super Bowl threat. That's not something that you need right now. If you give Jalen Ramsey in, how much more wins do the Redskins have? A couple, maybe 2 or 3? And that's not going to be the difference in them making the playoffs. It's going to be the difference in them challenging the Cowboys or the Eagles. And I think that you deal with that by you don't give away your assets. Like Greg just said, he said you have Haskins on that 5-year deal. He's going to be cheap. You just keep building your assets. You keep drafting well. Like you said, Andrew, you have to draft well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And then you come up with a good, well-rounded team. And that's the Seattle Seahawks method. They drafted Russell Wilson late. They got him on a cheap deal. They built up the rest of their defense. They built up a good running back, good offensive line, Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. They had that Legion of Boom. And they got all those players because they had their quarterback, a good quality quarterback, on such a cheap deal. So I think that's the way to go. Build through the draft. Use Haskins and those assets to your advantage rather than giving them all away for a ready-made player right now who isn't necessarily going to give you that many more wins. We'll move on to college football now, the Terps. The DC college football team as such, and they were off to a great start, undefeated, ranked for the first time in a long time, and then they did something that we've seen Maryland football do a lot in the past couple of years. They fell for that trap game. Last year they beat Texas to start the year. Maryland beat Texas to start the year last year, and then the following week lost to Temple at home. This year they do the same. They have 2 big wins, beat a ranked Syracuse team at home, beat number 21 Syracuse, and then go on the road and they lose to Temple. Very tough game, 2 bad goal line stops where you just got to find a way to punch the ball in, and that's a winnable game for Maryland. 20-15 loss at Temple. It will be key. We don't like seeing that type of repeat performance and with the new coaching staff, but Loxley, he's earned enough. We've earned our trust. We give him a couple years, and they have a huge game coming up next Friday against Penn State. It's going to be home. That's a rivalry game. Ralph Friedgen, the former head coach, is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame that night. He'll be there on campus in College Park. Friday night game, that should be an electric atmosphere in College Park on ESPN for that game. And if the Terps can keep it close against Penn State, or I think they should definitely keep it close and they find a way to win, I think all will be forgiven with that Temple loss last week. It's a bit of a trap game as people are looking ahead to the big rivalry versus Penn State. The Mystics won Game 1 last night over the Las Vegas Aces. A big win for them, winning Game 1, and they look to move on in the WNBA playoffs. They had a first-round bye due to their regular season success. A little bit of a controversial play at the end where Kelsey Plum for Las Vegas was driving into the middle of the lane, pulled up for a free throw line jumper, kind of tried to stop and draw some contact from Elena Deladon, who was trailing the play. Ref gave him a no call. Ball missed badly, and the Mystics win. Winston Hilton, the regular host, had a couple tweets about that. I agreed with him. Looked like she was looking for a foul too much than just trying to make the play. So I thought it was a good no call there by the officials. And then just quickly touching on USA basketball, I mean, it was bad, very bad. 7th place performance in the World Cup, lost to France and Serbia. I mean, it was just an embarrassment, and it kind of was a wake-up call, I think, because I think, including myself, I thought this team would be fine. I thought they would win the gold medal pretty easily with still all the lack of stars that they had. They still had a couple all-stars and very good NBA players, and the world has caught up to them. And it showed in a hurry. Turkey should have beaten them. France did beat them. Serbia did beat them when they have only a couple NBA players. This is a roster full of NBA players. It's not our best, and I think our guys are starting to realize that. As you see, Steph Curry has already confirmed the 2020 Olympics to Rachel Nichols in Tokyo, so we should have our A squad back for that. We're going to take one last quick commercial break. We're going to come back and just talk about keys to Redskins-Bears, get our guys' final thoughts on that game, and then we will be gone for this week. We're going to be right back. Like I said, just one quick more commercial break. Tune in.
This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry. This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry.
Hey everybody, and welcome back into Redskins Relaunch. We are wrapping up our show right here. One last segment. We are going to do even deeper dive into the Redskins-Bears. We're going to get our keys to the game and predictions from our guys, starting with Cameron. What do you think is going to be the key for the Redskins to win this game?
All right, key to the game, I got to go offensively, protect the ball, and defensively, force turnovers. I already spoke about how I think this game, if the Redskins are going to win it, it's got to be low scoring. And, I expect our offense not to move the ball that much, but if we can protect the ball and not give them short fields, and then if our defense can get like a pick six, maybe a scoop and score, maybe a punt return touchdown, one of those game-changing defensive plays to put points on the board, I think that's the Redskins' only chance. That said, I'm going to go probably 20-14 Bears.
Andrew, Redskins have a shot this week, you think, on Monday night in Chicago?
I'm going to think they have a shot just because the Bears' offense has been so abysmal. I mean, Trubisky looks like he's taken 4 steps backwards. Keys to the Redskins, you got to shut down the passing game. You can't let Mitchell Trubisky really do anything. They've got some good running backs. I think David Montgomery's, the rookie, is just going to keep getting better. I think the Bears are going to get their rushing yards. But you got to limit that passing game. You can't get lit up in the secondary again. And in the offense, I think the key, score 21 points. I think 21 points wins this game. I just don't think the Bears' offense is that good. And if the offense puts up 21, they've done their job. But my prediction, I think the Bears, just Khalil Mack and that defense is going to be a little bit too much for the Redskins O-line. I think the Bears take this one 21-10.
Yeah, I think it's a great point by you. 21, I believe, as well, will win this game, and the Redskins have gotten to 21 the past 2 games, 21 points against Dallas, and then 29, I believe, against Philadelphia. So the offense can do it, and I think 21, you're right, points would win the game. My keys is the offense has to become more unpredictable. We talked about the offensive coordinator a little bit with Jay Gruden. I know he's a big influencer on the play calling. I mean, I think you have to take more shots. You have to be a little bit more unpredictable, get some more creative plays, some more Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type plays, get the screen game going with Chris Thompson. I think he's been underutilized. He's a dynamic player. Have to get him involved more in more creative ways, not just dumped off out of the backfield. Get him going on some screens, some reverses, stuff like that. Have to take some more deep shots and be more unpredictable with Terry McLaurin. They have to keep this Bears defense off balance. They are just too good when they know what you're doing. They're going to come up and line it and run it right at you. And then offensively, I said it pretty much the whole show, we have to stick with this ground game more, feed AP, and then those shots and those more shot plays that Terry McLaurin and other receivers, Paul Richardson, will be there, be more unpredictable. And I think that'll give the Redskins a chance to hang around in this game versus a very good Bears defense. But like we said, that Bears defense, Bears offense, you don't know what could happen. So this should be a very interesting game. We know how Redskins are on prime time, usually not very good, but hey, they got nothing to lose. They're the underdog in this game at Chicago. No one's expecting a lot. Come out, play fierce, play fast, and hopefully we'll be talking about a big upset Redskins win next Wednesday with Winston Hilton. This is going to wrap up our show. I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to thank everybody for all the comments. It was great fan engagement tonight. Hopefully we read and got to all of your comments, reacted to it. Hopefully we'll be back talking about the Nationals playoff opponents, talking about the Mystics moving on to the next round, talk about the Cavs preseason, and talk about hopefully a Redskins victory. For Cameron Anderson, Andrew Walker, Nick Yori, I'd like to thank Winston Hilton. Thanks for letting us host this week. Been a great episode of Redskins Relaunch. Please join us next week, same time, same place, with Winston Hilton, Wednesdays nights here, DMVSTREAM.COM.